Hey guys, this is Tam, just jumping on quickly to say that we had a bit of audio technical difficulties with this episode, but it's still relatively listenable, so stick through. Thank you very much in advance and hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the STC Fit Learning Podcast. I'll be your host today. My name's Ben Scott. I'll be joined by Jason Galea. Thanks for joining us on our way to create 1 million positive outcomes for personal training clients by 2030. The podcast is brought to you by @STC Fit Learning, a page created to upskill and educate PTs and gym nerds. Also brought to you by @STC Fit, and that's a place for all your online and in-person personal training needs. If you enjoyed today's episodes, please give us a share and tag on the Instawebs. You can tag @STC Fit, @STC Fit Learning, @Ben Scott SC, and @Jason Galea PC. Hope you enjoy the show.
Makes you a bit jittery.
Sometimes.
Yeah, same. Yeah. I usually find 3 for me is a bit of a cutoff.
Yeah, I had to build over a long period of time, even just to have 2.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I mean. Like I haven't eaten enough. So 2 might be like, I could go into a weird place. So we'll just see what happens.
See how we go.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
We're rolling. Sweet. Welcome everyone, STC Fit Learning Podcast. We are back. Jason's missing. Jason's sick, but I've replaced him. We don't think so. He's done a couple of rats and he's all good. So hopefully it's just the flu because he's in the wedding party on Sunday. Yeah.
Of course, yes.
So hopefully that all comes good. Better. We just said like better now than waking up Saturday no good. As long as he tests negative on the day, we'll be fine. The other voice that you can hear is Morgan from Penny Finance, who I think we spoke about is coming on and kind of prefaced you guys a bit. So welcome to the studio.
Amazing. Looks great.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. We try and point it out to everyone like, oh my God, studio.
No, honestly, as soon as I walked in, I was like, wow, it's really cool, guys.
It's been a really long evolution. I think the first episode we recorded on like a Nokia phone on gym balls. And it's in a spare room at the gym. So there's like noise in the background.
But how cool is that?
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool just to show how far you've come, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That'll be the same with Penny. Like I started that out of my 1-bedroom, not even lounge room because there was no lounge room space.
Yeah,
just
awesome.
Shit everywhere, you know, but it's what we do.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, I've deliberately tried to avoid talking to you since you got here.
Okay.
Because I like to just like, all right, let's find out about you on the podcast because it tends to be a little bit more interesting than having to repeat it.
Sure.
So we spoke and I didn't know. So I was referred to you by a friend of mine who I knew growing up in Shepparton.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out you're from Shepparton as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I was like, it made me laugh because I always get asked when people say like, oh, you grew up in Shep, do you know such and such? I was like, no, I don't
know everyone.
I don't know the 65,000 people that live in the Golden Valley.
Exactly.
No.
But somehow we tend to know a lot of people and you tend to know someone who knows someone. And
yeah, especially in the same like age group, year level as well. Like you would have been, are you the same year as Jess?
Yeah.
So a couple of years below me.
Yeah, but then different schools, but then, you know, there's all that crossover.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you go from Shepparton to here? What's that story?
Well, I left for uni.
Yeah.
So, you know, finished high school and I knew growing up in Shep, as much as I don't hate Shep by any stretch of the imagination. My family's still all there, but I just never really felt like I fit in. Yeah. Like I knew that I kind of wanted more for myself, didn't necessarily know what that was. So went off to uni, and at that time when we were growing up, there wasn't a uni there. Like I think there is now for some things, but there just really wasn't. So I had to leave. I got accepted to a couple of different unis, but I really also wanted to move to Melbourne because I just wanted to live in Melbourne. I wanted that big city life, you know, type thing.
Yeah.
You're okay. You can smell my pop.
Special guest shadow.
Special guest. So yeah, moved to Melbourne, went to uni, but I actually did nutrition because growing up at school, I was really interested in food and working out and so they tell you, like when you don't know what you're going to do, they say, well, do what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, food's something that I am interested in, health, studied nutrition, and then started working in gyms.
Yep.
So out of uni, started working for Jets Fitness. I started one of their gyms there. I was their manager, and then I grew into their regional manager. Then I went to KX Pilates.
Yeah, nice.
And then from there, I actually went into finance. finance.
Interesting.
So it was a fitness to finance, like that move. People always say to me, like, that's so random.
Yeah.
How did you do that? But it's actually, I've been really fortunate to have really good people behind me, as in who believed in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was working in the fitness industry, a couple of people that I'd worked with actually called me up and they're like, look, we're going to start a finance business. We think this would be really good for you. Do you want in? And I was like, so random.
That's awesome.
But sure, let's give it a crack. And I've always been someone who, I think I can do whatever I want, if that makes sense. Like, and that's not an arrogant thing. It's just whatever I put my mind to. If I want it bad enough and I work hard enough, I'll get it. So I was like, yeah, let's give it a crack. And that's
awesome.
what I did.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I've always said that would be the path I would take if not for fitness.
Yeah, right. Well, you want a job or no?
No, not at this point. I think I'm a bit too deep.
Seems that way.
Yeah, but it's like I can see, I think the value carryover is there. It's like the curiosity, it's the like the group of people that you're around. Like we spoke on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, like typically everyone in the fitness space is trying to get better.
Totally.
They're trying to grow, they're trying
There's
to achieve.
so many parallels.
Yeah.
Like, and you guys also know I also have a PT studio now as well. So my partner April and I, we have a PT studio in Camberwell, and we are, like, I'm constantly speaking to her about, you know, when she's speaking to clients about their food or their training or whatever, and we're always talking about that goal setting, and it's so similar with money.
Yeah.
You know, so when I was writing the course for you guys and we were doing that, like so many things I was easily able to relate it back to the PT world. And because this is what you guys do, it's so similar.
Yeah.
You know, but even taking it further back than that, you know, gyms, when I was working there, that was all about sales. We were trying to just sell memberships. And then, you know, I've worked in retail, I've worked in so many different sales roles too, and mortgage broking at the start, that's what it seemed like to me. It's not what it seems like now, but yeah, I mean, you're still just selling. It's just a different product. You know, and being able to connect with people, understand what they need, be able to find a solution for them. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's such a cool parallel.
Yeah.
I like seeing how all that comes together and seeing, like, we haven't spoken that much outside of like, hey, this is the course.
Yeah.
You're flat out, I'm flat out. They can kind of overlap. So it's interesting how people with similar values, though, like, just show up in the same place all the time. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with Jess, and how this whole thing's come back full circle.
Yeah.
Is that Jess and I went to school together, and then didn't really have contact after school, and then she started property investing, noticed that I was a mortgage broker, and was like, hey, I want a good mortgage broker. So we started working together in that, from that side of things. And then we started talking more and more, again, from the values point of view, again, what our goals were and what we were trying to achieve. And then now she's working with me, you know, cool. Like, cause it's just like, why wouldn't you gravitate to, and you want to spend the time with people that, you know, are going to help grow and inspire you and, you know, help you do better and do the things you want to do.
Yeah.
Versus
for sure.
just, existing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess a little bit of a backstory maybe then on Penny and on Penny Finance and how that's kind of evolved. Did you start out initially by yourself? It sounds like you invited first and then went out on your own.
That's right. Yeah. So I was invited first to it was a startup, but it was alongside an already existing business. So the guys that I was working with had essentially call it bought in to an existing business, and I was coming alongside that. But that relationship between the directors in that business disintegrated fairly quickly, which left me as collateral damage, which was a little awkward because obviously I'd left my life and everything that I knew before, and I was starting this new thing. But, you know, as I do, I kind of just get on with it. So I just started working with the parent company, which went well, and I learned a lot for a time. And then I moved into a same thing, but I started working with another company because they wanted me to buy in as more of a partner within that business. And so there was 3 of us. That relationship then also disintegrated. So then I was like, oh God, is this me? Like, am I the reason why these things keep happening? But again, second time round ended up being collateral damage. And at that point, this is at the start of 2020. This is start of the pandemic. Things are like, shit is hitting the fan at this point. Absolutely hitting the fan. Not only in my business, like not only in my work world, but my personal life was also blowing up. And so I literally woke up one day and I remember being 29. And you know when, like, you would know, like similar age, you know, as you edge closer to 30, and you're like, when you were in your early 20s, you think that your life's going to be over by the time you're 30. And if you don't have your like shit sorted by that point, you literally life's over. And I was getting close to 30 and I'm like, I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is not what I should be doing right now. And I need to just pretty much pick my whole life up, my life as what that I want, and just go and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I left everything.
That's awesome.
I literally left everything, including my husband at the time.
Yeah, wow.
And left.
Yep.
And because I was just like, something's just so off here.
Yeah.
You know, and I was looking at the rest of my life and thinking, yeah, while life's short, it's also really fucking long.
Yeah.
to not be doing exactly what you want, to not be surrounded by the people you want, doing the things your way. So I think what I finally had at that point that I hadn't had before was the courage to do it myself. Because I think I had thought previously that I needed these people around me.
Yeah.
You know, that I couldn't necessarily do it on my own. I needed that backing. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I can't really go much lower than I'm at right now. So I can't get any worse. So I may as well just blow it up and see how it goes. And so then working through having my own business, there's a lot of logistics, as you know, to work through all of that. Big thing was around the name. Like, how do I, that's always been such a stress to me. It's like, how do you come with a business name? Something that people will get and will resonate. It's not stupid and, you know, all of those things. And so I had so many conversations. I invited so many people that were in my close circle to talk to me about what they thought. And where Penny Finance came from was, it was a conversation I was having with a friend of mine, but also my nan. She used to say, find a penny, pick it up, and then all day you have good luck. Yeah. And that is something that's always really stuck to me.
That's what happened in my head as soon as I read it.
Oh, it is? Yeah. And just penny and money. And so then through my branding and everything like that, I've been able to, you know, use that word, you know, quite a lot as well. So that's where the name came from. But at this time, again, I'd left home and I was getting divorced, and, you know, April and I had met and we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hawthorne. But when I say 1 bedroom, like, I'm talking like cupboard. Like, it was so small. Like, this room that we're in now, this studio, plus maybe a little bit, is our whole entire apartment. Yeah. And so I had my desk and my screens, and I'm like trying to launch this legitimate business from my lounge room. And look, I was really fortunate. I'd been a mortgage broker for a bit at that point. I did have a very loyal customer base who were just like, whatever you do, Morgan, we don't care. Like, whatever the name is, we don't care. And then I grew it from there. And it's awesome. It's going well. And now I've got 5 in my team, and things are going really well. So as much as it was terrifying, obviously, at the time, but it's all worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations that are around, like, what's the worst that could happen? It's like,
and that's what you got to think about.
It's not so bad. Like, we'll just send it, see what happens.
But it is. Cool. There's that, you know, my parents, for instance, like, it depended on who I spoke to as to what advice I was getting at that time, right? Like, my parents were like, oh, well, we just go get a job, like, go get paid a few $100,000, whatever. Yeah. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go work for someone else again and just hit these same, you know, walls that I've always hit. I'm like, no, I've got to go do this thing on my own. And yes, I'm going to have to go backwards with money and income for a while, but it'll be worth it.
Is finance volatile like that in terms of like are those two things falling apart uncommon, or is like that's a thing that happens a lot
within the finance businesses? Yeah. No, I don't think it's common. I think that for me it was just a bit coincidental. To be honest, the two situations that I walked into, I probably didn't necessarily have I didn't do enough due diligence. Yeah. Because that's another issue that I've always had, is that I'm very trusting. And you kind of just take people on face value, and it is what it is, and like no one's out to hurt you. Yeah. And then it's only later you find out that that's not everyone.
I think that's something that's like, as a business owner in any space, like you start to develop a gut feel for that stuff, like
100%.
Beyond.
And you need to listen to it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times where I think in the past that we've done stuff and it just didn't feel right at the start, and it blew up, and it's like, why? You knew this was coming.
Exactly. Yeah. And I look back on both of the situations and I see red flags. Yeah. And I saw them at the time, but maybe they were a little bit orange or yellow. Yeah. And again, me thinking that, oh, well, this is just business, or this is just how it is, and, you know, everything will be okay, versus me now and the confidence that I have in my own abilities. I would never put up with that. Yeah. Like the things that I put up with then, I would never in a million years put up with that. And I would never let anyone I care about put up with that. Yeah. But until you have your own sort of self-worth and all that figured out, you do tend to put up with more than you should.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I guess like tying into that, something I was thinking about on the way over. So I guess if we would describe why STC Fit Learning exists, It's like Jason and I got to a point where we were pretty successful doing what we were doing.
Mhm.
There's two sides of it. One, we wanted to give back to the industry that we felt had given a lot to us. But also, there's a business opportunity in coaching other people up.
Totally.
And one thing that I think stands out as to why we're here is to get other people or other trainers to actually be able to build a career and a life out of fitness.
Yep.
Because, and I don't know if this is why, there's probably lots of factors like the course and all that kind of stuff that we could go into as well, but there's not many other businesses that you start when you're 19, 20, 21, like so early in your 20s. Like we're talking about like being able to make mature decisions now,
Yeah.
like in our early 30s.
I know all the things we know now, if only.
Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
like, I don't know many like 20-year-olds opening cafes. Like there's not many other places that
Exactly.
like young people are walking into, sometimes unknowingly owning their own business.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, and this is where it ties into today, is like
Mm-hmm.
the financial management side of it is so poor.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, I get to 23, 24, 25. It's like, I want to buy a new car or an engagement ring or a house or a whatever. And it's
I
like,
haven't managed my money well. I haven't managed the cash flow in the business. All
Yeah.
those things.
yeah, it's like old mate Joe in the
Mhm.
PT room that's been telling you to take cash for the last like 3 years. And all of a sudden you go
Avoid
into the bank,
tax.
they're like, hey, you only make 20 grand a year. See ya.
Yeah.
And then, like we see people fall out of the industry so often,
Mhm.
both from like, because let's be honest, you can make pretty good money
Mhm.
pretty young
Mhm.
with an 8-week course in
Mhm.
some situations
Mhm.
as a personal trainer,
Totally.
but just managing that, being able to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like obviously being in the fitness space as well, is that what you've seen? Do you work with many people in the fitness space? Do you see many people coming to you and you're like, hey, sorry, you got to like turn this around a lot for the next like year or so
Yeah.
to fix the damage?
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's not just fitness.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, you're talking about, you know, these guys being really young and coming into industry and not knowing any better, right? And to be honest, like, you know, another parallel here is a huge reason why I came into finance and a huge reason why this means so much to me is that if I knew what I knew now, and if I didn't take the bad fucking advice that I got when I was in my early 20s around money, I'd be in a completely different position.
Yeah.
And so when I get people who are in their early 20s, 30s, coming to me and are thinking about doing things, and I'm like, hell no,
Yeah.
we are not doing that. That is financial suicide right there. We are not doing these things, you know, because I help
Yeah.
them understand the repercussions of their decisions. And I think that that's so important. What you guys are trying to do is infiltrate them young.
Yeah.
You know, like get a handle on them while they're young, and like while they're trying to build this up, to help them understand that, okay, well, if you do these things and if you do them well, this is what that's then going to look like. But if you do these things this way, this is what it's going to look like. And I was listening to one of the podcasts, you had someone on, maybe the last episode, and he was talking about thinking about the end
Yeah.
and working backwards. It's
Yeah.
exactly what you do with money.
Mm.
Again, exactly the same. What do you want from your life? And working backwards from there and understanding the decisions you have to make, because you make the wrong ones and you're going to go in a completely different direction, and money is a huge one there. So yeah, I work a lot, not just with PTs, but just small businesses in general.
Yeah.
And it is not a personal training issue.
Yeah.
That cash flow, it is definitely not a personal training issue. It
Yeah.
is small business in general.
Yeah.
You know, and I go through it in the course that I've, you know, helped you guys with, but the big ones are just where they just mix everything together, you know, like personal business. They're not actually running it like a business.
Yeah.
They're just treating it like a job.
Mm.
And until you actually start thinking like a business owner, that this is my legitimate business and me as a person is separate to that, step one.
Yeah.
Act like a goddamn business owner.
Yeah. It's and that's one of my pet peeves too. It's like people get out here and like shit on the fitness industry and how poor like the standards are and blah blah blah, and then it's like the same people like are taking cash or they haven't separated. And they're like, so you want our industry to be perceived as professionals, and you don't, like, you're having people deposit money into your bank account and like Gumtree, so you don't have to pay tax on it. Like, come on. Like, you can't like, yes, cool, you're good at programming, but like being a good business owner and a good personal trainer and having our industry taken seriously is more than that.
Totally. And the 8-week course you're talking about, it is unfortunate, but it is true that it's never going to cover that. And so, trainers that are coming out of the course need to know that they're going to have to find other resources. They're going to have to find other mentors and people who can help them with the other aspects to make it a legitimate business and to get them on their way, because that course is definitely not teaching them all of that.
100%.
No way.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, obviously we have lots of levels come through all of our courses. So at the moment we're working through a standout PT program. We actually did finance yesterday. I was laughing. Like, perfect timing. So our goal initially is like, actually go and talk to an accountant, preferably someone who also has like a little bit of maybe financial advisor or something like that in there as well. So and get you set up in a good spot, which most people haven't done.
Nope.
It's just like, I'll just go to H&R Block and submit my stuff at the end of.
And hope that it's okay.
Yeah.
Hope I haven't fucked anything up.
Yeah, not to shoot out a chain or anything like that, but like they don't build a relationship with someone who's so important to what you're trying to develop. And then it's interesting, like little things like language. Like, I pay myself a salary every week. It's like, okay, so you set up on PAYG. It's like, just send money from that. It's like, okay, they're different things.
Yeah, exactly.
So the acumen's just not there. So the goal for us in the Standout PT program is basically separate business from personal. Number one, start creating savings in business and personal and money management. And we spoke like a lot of that comes off the back of the Barefoot Investor book. We just talked about like the principles from that. The reason we use that is I was that young person as well. It was like, I think when I met my partner, we were like maybe 60 in the hole. And we're getting married on Sunday and we're in the green.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that maybe there's something to this. And I really honestly haven't made that much more money over that period.
You've just managed it better.
And it's like, how much better is your day and your week when it's like, oh, don't want to answer that phone call. It's probably a gas bill or fucking someone looking for something.
Stressful AF.
Yeah.
But I say that to everyone. This goes literally for everyone. It is not what you earn. It's what you save and what you do with that leftover over time that's going to matter. Like, I've got clients earning F tons of money.
Yeah.
And spending F tons of money.
Yeah, single level of stress.
Do you know what I mean? They still, exactly. In fact, they have more stress because they just have bigger bills.
Yeah.
Than any, So, it's managing it that is absolutely critical. But going back to the barefoot thing, look, obviously, we spoke about this. He sold a lot of books and he appealed to a lot of people. The trouble that I have with that is that it's trying to apply one size fits all, and that doesn't work. Okay, so what I go through in the stuff that I've done for you guys is that it all comes down to the individual. So if you're trying to work out, okay, what can I pay myself? Yeah. Well, to work that out, you have to know what you're getting paid from your clients. Yeah. Because if you're going to say, I'm going to pay myself $1,000 a week, but you only get $900 a week from your clients, well, guys, sorry, you can't do that. It's not going to work, right? Yeah. And so this is where, you have to go back and you have to understand, okay, what's coming in? Then what has to go out? Like what business expenses do we have that have to go out? And then what is left? Yeah. And then it's the what is left that we can start to play around with and figure out what we can do from there. But if you just try to stay, and I have it just with anyone who's got any normal job, they're like, I've just put this much money in this account for savings. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like, oh yeah, but I end up having to transfer it back all the time. It's like, yes, because you just put a random number in there hoping that it would be okay, and it's just simply not, because you haven't left yourself enough to cover your life. Yeah, and that's definitely, I think, like the napkin theory that comes from that book is, like you said, it's a great starting point for someone who doesn't kind of get it. It's a great starting point to separate out the bank accounts. Do that. Separate it out, know where the money's going, but it's the amounts that go in. Yeah, that's the bit that needs to be personalized. We actually rolled it out as is when we first started it, only internally. Before then, we weren't educating other PTs. We were like, our guys, like, you need to look at this and start kind of managing your finances, because like we're running a mentorship where people sort of worked under us, for us, but run their own kind of show as well. And it was like when the shit hit the fan, they had their money, I was like, I'm going to go get a job. Okay, if we manage this better leading up, we'll be in a better spot. No, but what ended up happening was, and I think a lot of people would have experienced this if they've done Scott Paper or any other budgeting model, you get to the end and there's a red line at the bottom. And you're like, fuck, my expenses are actually more than what's coming in before I even start spreading it out. And that's, I think, when people hit the panic button. Totally. And they're either out of the industry or whatever, or they just like, if I just don't look at it, it'll go away. Yeah, exactly. So, and neither of those two things are really the right move. But that just goes back to, like, if you really want this, if you really want PT to be your goal, or any business for that matter, there's a really good chance for that first year or two, you're going to have to cut back.
Yeah.
Like on your personal stuff, like if you really, really want to make a go of this, like you're going to have, there's going to be potentially have to be some sacrifices made.
Yeah.
But it's for the long-term good, right? And again, it comes back to what do you want from your life? And if this is what you see yourself doing, and if you plan on growing a PT business or any other business, what do I have to do now to make this viable? And then once it's viable and I can reinvest back into it, I can start paying myself, and you can plan these things out.
Yeah.
You can. You know, and you've got so many hours in the day, you've got so many clients paying so much. Like these are all things that we can actually just use numbers and work backwards and figure out how to make this work. But it's when this head in the sand bit.
Yeah.
You know, that because that's easier.
100.
You know, and when you don't know what to do, that is absolutely what people are doing. But you want it. There are people out there like us who can help and want to make sure that you can be successful. And so I have this knowledge. For me, it's like ABCD. Yeah. It's the same thing with you running a PT program. It's like so easy. Like it's like duh. Like of course. But for some people, this stuff is really hard.
Yeah.
So, and money is stressful. Money is yuck. Money is not something that most people want to have a conversation about.
I think that's a big part of it too. Is like it's a lot of people we work with, because we're probably more of that like client first mentality in the way we approach things. A lot of the people who have that mindset also kind of think like, I don't want to be the seedy business person and talk about money and ask for money and do all that kind of shit because it's greasy or it's been perceived as, because they've never really had the conversation. And like I know when I was like in that kind of red zone, it was like I don't know where to go. Like it was like, do I go to that debt collection service that like does all my bills for me, or how do I sort of do this? So I think exposing people like yourself, and even just people like yourself existing, because like I think when most people think broker, it's like, oh, they just like sit in an office for rich people and get their shit for them. But it's not. It's the services that you offer is like, actually, let's have a look at where you're at. Like you said, personalize things, reverse engineer things, and go, this is where you want to be, and start pulling all that together.
That's exactly right. But also like just touching on this stuff, and you know this. When April and I started dating one another, she was working in a gym, and she was getting paid peanuts to run group classes. Yeah. And she was fantastic, right? And that's how we met, like in the gym. That's how we met. And I'd worked in gyms before. I was a business owner myself. I had many PTs in my life. I knew what a good PT looks like, right? Yeah. I knew how they held themselves and, you know, their knowledge and what it took, right? And so I knew that she was good. Anyway, so time fast forward, we are going to open this gym. And this is, you know, so all through COVID, she'd gone online with her clients and then gone into the park, you know, once the park's opened up, and then we got this studio. And setting the price point. Yeah. Right? And so like she said to me, oh, what do you think we should charge? And I was like, you know, I had my ideas about what I thought it was worth. She nearly died. Right? Actually nearly died. Yeah. When I said how much I thought we should be charging per session. She's like, oh no, because she didn't understand her own value. Yeah. At all. Could not comprehend that she was worth that, because she used to get paid what she did at the gym. Yeah. And so she just associated her value with that. And even before that, you know, she was doing other things that wasn't getting paid anywhere near what she was worth. And so then we had to start having that conversation about valuing yourself and the perception of value when it comes to money. And if you've got a PT charging $40 an hour and you've got a PT charging $90 an hour, which PT are you going to?
Yeah, I'm choosing the expensive one.
Correct, because exactly. But that's just perception of value, isn't it, right? And so we've had to have all these conversations, and I think that's a really important thing, because so many PTs aren't valuing themselves and aren't paying themselves enough. So of course they're going to have a red line. Yeah.
Because,
like, you know.
When they think too that like, oh, well, I only make X and I've only got Y at the end of the week, like I can't charge this person that. And it's like, no, there's other people in the world make more money than that.
Absolutely. Okay.
And
absolutely.
when you're really good at your job and you provide enough value,
correct.
People will
it's
actually...
the value.
Yeah, I've actually had, in the past, like a client of mine post in our group, like, hey, how do I feed my family on $110 for the next fortnight? And I was like,
what?
No. Like, you're paying me like that per week. No. Go to online, reduce your payments. But it's like she valued what we were doing. It was like, this is a really high priority in my life. Whoa. And I want to do this. And I was like, I love you. That's great. But let's not do that.
Whoa.
Like, your ability to eat and stay alive is
that baseline. Yeah. Let's work from there.
I will still facilitate the outcome for you via a much lower price point than that. So it's like...
Sometimes, you know, and I've had that with my stuff too. where I've had to, like most of my sessions, like some of my stuff is free of charge because we get paid by the banks.
Yeah.
Some of my stuff, my strategy stuff, I do charge per session. And it's just an upfront fee. And that's just kind of how I've always worked it. But then there's some people who just simply can't pay that. And so we have installments. And they can pay it off in installments. And I don't want them not to get the service because I know how much they need this. And if they just do this, they're going to be in such a better position moving forward that they would have the money to just, to do the things like, have a session with me, for instance. So, sometimes, of course, we're going to make, but that comes back to us giving shit.
Yeah, definitely.
About them and their outcomes and why we're doing what we're doing. And for us, it's not just about money. No way.
Yeah.
The money comes from the fact that we're doing a good job.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think into that in the podcast you were mentioning is just like he's probably, I would say number one, but I have to say arguably number one prep coach in Australia, just solely off the back of that mentality. Just be the best. Like give this person everything they can that's in front of me, and that's pretty much it. And it's the same for you. It's the same for me. Like
it's not that hard. I don't know, but most people prefer to be shit. I don't know. Maybe they don't prefer to be shit, but it's easier to be shit.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's more what it is. It's like it's less confronting. It takes less growth. Growth is obviously uncomfortable. So it's more comfortable to be shit. Definitely.
Yeah.
So someone comes into you. They're a PT trying to kind of be an adult and a PT at the same time.
Tough, yeah.
First thing we looked at, I think, was cash flow.
Yep.
So what are the tips that you would sort of, or maybe just like the points of focus that you look at when a business is like laid out on paper in front of you?
Yeah, so if someone comes to me and they're like, running their business, but they're just feeling a bit lost. When it comes to their money, we just dial it right back. And we just start with the numbers. But sometimes before we get to the numbers, and this will come from me having a chat with them and sort of understanding them a little bit, because sometimes we need to go even back further than that and understand why they behave the way they do around money.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of that comes back from how they grew up, how their parents were with money, how it felt growing up, and, this whole head in the sand thing, that all comes from that. If they would just, like if money is just something that just feels yuck and they just don't want to borrow of it, or maybe they didn't have that much and so now as soon as they get it, they spend it because they felt like they'd missed out on a lot. Now it's got the real treat themselves mentality. Yeah. So we do a fair bit of mindset stuff first. Obviously that depends. Some people don't necessarily need that or aren't necessarily even ready to have that conversation. So sometimes we have to dial back to that once they are ready. But I'll just feel that out and figure out what to do. But so essentially we've got to work out why we're doing what we're doing with money. Because if we're self-sabotaging, we need to have that conversation because a lot of people would be doing that.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like a needs analysis in a finance. It's like, that's a really cool concept to identify that first. Because it's like, using fitness again, it's like the best diet's the one you follow. Yeah. It's like there's no point writing a cool budget if you're just like you said, self-sabotaging every single week. Yeah, that's exactly right. It'd be like you trying to write a food plan for someone and you know that they've got all these intolerances, but you've added everything into that they can't eat. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it ain't gonna work. It's just, then this is the exact same thing. So we've got to figure them out. And someone said to me one time, so I'm an extraordinarily empathetic person, like to a fault. Yeah. Right. But I figured out how to use it as my superpower. And so that's where I can dial in with people and I can sort of really figure out where they're at, where they're hurting, where their pain points are, and help them from wherever they need that, right? Everyone's different. So we start there, all the mushy stuff, a little bit of the mindset stuff, as long as they're open to it. Yeah. Then we just have to do the numbers, and so I have a really simple budget template for personal. So we need to start there because we want to run a business, we want to be successful, we want to have all of this money. But at the end of the day, we all have bare essentials that we need to survive. And if we're not hitting those nails on the head, like you talked about, putting food on the table, having a roof over your head, being able to breathe, right? Yeah. Like if we don't have that stuff organized, the rest of it doesn't matter. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about trying to be a property mogul and if you haven't sorted that out, right? Yeah. So we have to start with the bare essentials. So we have a really simple personal budget. We work through your bare essential expenses. So as I was saying earlier, like maybe sometimes we're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. We might have to dial back the shopping or the coffees or whatever it might be to fit all this in. Yeah. So we're going to work out, what do you need to do you? What do you need to do you? Everyone's different, and I'm not here to judge you. Like what you spend your money on the next person, everyone's different. What we all deem to be necessary is different. Fine. So we'll go through, work that out. Then we go into business. Okay, so we need this, how much we need to do you.
Now we're looking at your business. We know what's coming in, what's going out. Can you actually pay yourself that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's a really important thing that we need to work through. So we just go through the steps. We just work out from the bare bones priorities and work up from there, right? So we're working through, can your business actually sustain paying you what you need to live? And then we can work up to paying you more, so that you are getting paid what you valued. And then work up to a point where you've actually got the money to reinvest back in your business.
Yeah.
And then what are the next steps? Strategically, how do we grow? Are we adding more PTs? Are we going online? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But we can't do that until we figure the first stuff out.
Yeah, I think there's so much value in that. Having worked with like PTs for 10 years now, one of the biggest obstacles they face is knowing what to do.
Yep.
If you ask a room full of PTs, do you know what to do when you get up on Monday? Like, what action steps need to take place? 90% of the room will be like, nah. And that's the biggest thing that I face every single day. Is I wake up like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do.
When it comes to money, or just in general?
In general, like,
really?
I know I need to do Instagram and a blog.
Call
with
the business owner. Sure. Yeah.
And they're just like frozen by this like analysis of all this stuff that they need to do.
Yes.
So I look at your model and I go, well, okay, now you know exactly what you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
You've decided on what you're going to charge.
Yep.
Now all you need to do is figure out what the timeline for that is,
mm-hmm.
reverse engineer how many phone calls that means per day, and wake up, do the job.
Exactly. And with, just from me growing my own business as well, like I obviously have, I don't profess to be any sort of marketing expert whatsoever, but I've tried a lot of things. Like, and so the people will often ask me, like, what should they be doing? Where should they be investing their money? And so we can have those chats too. Yeah. Because that just, like, because I can have that chat with you based on us being business owners and just sharing my experience on what's worked and what hasn't, all the things to look out for. And again, that just comes back to, these people that they're where we were. Yeah. Like if we could try to help them not make all of the mistakes that we necessarily did, like that'd be cool.
I think we can impart that knowledge.
But in saying that, like you do have to make mistakes. I'm not opposed to mistakes whatsoever. As long as you learn from them, you're not repeatedly doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I think mistakes are okay.
Yeah, and important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's super valuable looking at it through that lens.
Yeah.
Like, I need to make X.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that? Then like stepping that out again. It's like combining. If you are new, it's like find a mentor that can show you that stuff.
Exactly.
I don't care if it's not us. Like find someone.
Find someone who's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Find someone who's where you want to be and pick their brain because they wouldn't have got it all right. That didn't happen straight away. Yeah. That has taken a long ass time to get them to where they are right now, and probably a lot of heartache and a lot of money stress and all the things that you are trying to figure out as you go through. So back to the the process, and so once we get to the point where the money bit is kind of a bit sorted out, we still need to plug other advisors in. You touched on it before about you need an accountant, but when you're running a legitimate business, as long as there's enough money to sustain it, you should also have a bookkeeper.
Yep.
A bookkeeper's a really big one because you talk about being a business owner and all the things, right, that you've got to do in your day. I like to try and help people understand that you want to get to a point where you're only doing the things that only you can do, right? Because there's certain things only you can do.
Yep.
Right? And if you're doing a reel on Instagram and you're the face of the brand, well, that needs to be you. You can't get someone else to do that. If you're product-based business is lucky you can get someone else to do all that for you. But there's certain things, you have to be the one in front of the client. Yeah. You have to be the one to run the program, whatever it is in your world. But then there's a whole lot of other things that are in the business that you can pay an expert to do that will take them a fraction of the time that it would take you, takes the stress away, and it's all about building up to the point where the business can sustain having these people plugged in to free you up and de-stress. Of course they do. Way better. Way better. Like my bookkeeper is insanely good. Like, she just sends me the BAS. She just sends me the payroll. And I'm like, okay, great. Done. Yeah. I can't do that. Like I'm a money person. I'm still not doing that in my business. No actual way because I don't have time. I don't want to do it.
For someone who maybe doesn't know the ins and outs of a bookkeeper, Xero is obviously something that a lot of people are moving in towards.
Good.
Bookkeeper on top of, in cohesion with. How does that all kind of work?
In cohesion with, exactly. Yeah. So the bookkeeper generally would get the subscription to Xero for cheaper as well because they have like obviously multiple people and you plug them into your Xero. So you've got they can sort of see everything in your Xero, and what you would use them for would be different for everybody. Mm-hmm. So depending on the level, how much time you have, how much money you have, who you're using. So they can go from doing just say BAS, right?
Yep.
To all the way to doing every single, transaction reconciliation, making sure that, all the P&L balance sheet, everything is all perfect and exactly as it should be. Because then what happens is come tax time, it's ready.
Yeah.
You pick it up, the accountant picks it up, they do your taxes, and it's all being managed super well, right? And so then what you're paying the accountant is a fraction of what you would have to pay them otherwise, because you imagine paying an accountant to go through everything from scratch when it's been an actual mess.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, far from ideal. So with a bookkeeper, it does go on levels. So if you're looking at implementing someone, I'd be getting them to tell you what would be included, right? In an internal. So if they're charging X per month, like what do I get for that? And how much is that going to alleviate me? And if you go back to think about your value, like how many hours a month are you spending on doing that? And then working backwards and figuring out, well, that's actually worth it.
Yeah.
Like, because if I can free my time up and I can then be doing something else, it's going to make more money.
Yeah.
Well, great. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
But with all the experts, anyone that you plug into anything, you just need to be so clear on what you're getting for your money, and not letting anyone take you for a ride, and not letting anyone under deliver, making sure they are, if they say they're going to do something, that they are actually doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, shameless plug, we do have bookkeeper already allocated in your business expenses in the Standout PT tab. But yeah, I think it's worthwhile investigating that kind of stuff. If we have the conversation, we actually had it with the in-laws around, like, we mentioned that we had a cleaner come in once a month. And they were like, God damn. Like, oh, you're like throwing caps. Like, well, no, that 4 hours that I would spend, or we would spend working or on cleaning, I can spend working and generate X versus Y that it costs.
And also, do you hate cleaning?
Yes,
I hate cleaning.
I fucking hate cleaning. And it's like, and I need, because I work on a certain level, and particularly, like, I don't know about you, creative work, like, sucks me.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
Love it, but there's a cap, and you can't. I found you can't force through creative work.
Nope. And so when you're on, you're on.
Exactly, and you need to go when you're on, and you need to stop when you're not.
Totally.
It's a waste of friggin' time.
And you got to have a break too.
Yeah.
That's another thing. As a business owner, you have to take breaks. You have to actually stop and do actually nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. And you know what happens when you do absolutely nothing?
You get better.
You get better.
Yeah.
Good ideas. You're rested. Like,
Yeah.
I'll go get a massage, and I would like to say I get it more often than I do, but maybe like once a month.
Yeah.
And I'll usually have my brightest ideas while I'm laying on that table, and I'll sit up and be like, yes,
Where's
figured it out.
Yeah.
What do I do? Something that's been rolling around in my head, because when you don't stop, it's just everything's rolling, and nothing ever stops. And it's only once you stop, you can finally get that clarity.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah. I think of using the cleaner as the example, which is the same as the bookkeeper and the accountant as all these other steps. It's like, if I get up and scrub showers and toilets on a Sunday morning, I'm not doing that. So then my performance during the week is affected. If my performances during the week is affected, what's the snowball effect? And it's not like, because obviously people are stuck in this time for money kind of trap. It's not just, what do you make in those 4 hours? Do it in sessions.
Correct.
Like, for example, it's like, what can you create long term that snowballs into, and where do you land in a year's time, or 3 years time, 5 years time, making those choices? Like we said at the start, you actually have to have the income coming in to be able to have those luxuries. And there is a time where it's like, I remember similar to you, my dog jumped on my laptop and ripped up like 10 keys, and I couldn't afford a new one at the time. So I wrote the blueprint for STC Fit on a laptop that was missing our first website and shit. You had to like really push it in because the rubber was still there, but the key still wasn't. And it's times you had to do that. And there's times that the laptop closes at 11 p.m. and shit happens to get it done. You eat like 2-minute noodles and life is like that for a period of time. But once you get to the point where you've got choice, I think a lot of people, like I said, same money story. Like the in-laws were like, oh,
mortified.
Yeah, why aren't you doing it? Like, you should be doing that. It's like,
but what so many people in that situation haven't seen is what's happened before that. All the work that's led up to this moment where you can make a decision like that. And that's what we were saying before about finding people who inspire you or who you want to be like, and picking their brains. Because they didn't arrive there overnight. Absolutely not. And no one did. They've all done the hard yards. And so if you can try to find some shortcuts in all of that by understanding, like picking their brain, go nuts. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got cash flow in the web there. where do we start to, like, obviously moving into most people, like we said earlier, leave when they have to borrow.
Yeah.
That, if I look at from a correlation time, it's like you're at that time in your life where it's like,
leave when they have to borrow, as in they can't get a home loan because of the way they've been managing
something
their money.
like that. Yeah. It's like they're in a relationship.
Yeah.
The hours aren't working anymore.
They need a real job.
It's like, it's like, oh, I want to get married and start a family, so I have to go get a real job now. It's like, ouch, but okay. Like, so, I guess, how do we navigate that?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and it's one that does take prep, you know, because with home loans, like, pretty much the way that it works is if there's a solution out there, I will find it.
Yep.
Okay? And there's obviously an easy way, and there's a not so easy way. And there's a simple way, and there's a really complex way. And when it comes to self-employed people, it's just more complex off the bat, straight away more complex, because the way that the banks are looking at your income is different than they are looking at someone who just get paid every week without fail, same amount, consistent. Banks love consistency. Because let's be honest, all they care about is they're going to get their loan paid back. Yeah,
it's predictable.
Right? It's predictable. Yeah. It's very, very predictable. So when it comes to being self-employed, one thing I would say is you need to be consistent as much as you can, but consistent not as in the same, getting consistently better.
Yeah.
They want you to demonstrate that you know how to run this business. And again, going back to thinking like a business owner, you need to demonstrate that you can do this, because they're going to back you based on you running this business, because that's where the income's coming from for you to do your life, to be able to pay your mortgage and everything like that you're going to have within that. So from day one, separating out the personal and business, absolutely necessary, because we need to see what the business is actually, how the business is operating, how you're paying yourself. You have your ABN registered. Most PTs are working for themselves, even if they're in gyms and stuff. Most of them are subcontracting, so having that ABN registered, super important. Register for GST when you can too. GST is an interesting conversation. I'll just touch on that for a sec. I'm not an accountant, so you need accounting advice for this, but GST is one of those things, again, come back to the value perception. You know, when you send an invoice out that's got GST, the assumption that your business is going well versus not, things like that. But also GST registration for some businesses for a minimum time period is also important. Not everyone, but some lenders.
Even just on, and this goes back to like that little stab I took earlier about people wanting the industry to get better and not being legit themselves. It's like a lot of people last year missed out on grants.
Because they weren't registered for GST.
Registered. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, you missed out on the payment, but you've also been dodging that tax bill for 4 years.
Which is reasonable, isn't it? You know? Yeah, you've been taking cash, you've been dodging the tax bill, so you probably shouldn't have got the money. But, you know, in saying that, if, you know, there was people who were earning 50, 60 grand and like so close and were doing all the right things, but because they hadn't registered for GST there, because they weren't quite there yet. But with GST registration, you should be registering for GST when, again, going back to knowing your numbers and sort of planning this out within the year where you think you're going to hit it. Because while you might not be doing now and day dot, if your plan is to grow this business over the next 6 to 12 months and get to that point, just register. You know, you get everything so all organized and ready to go, so that then when that time comes, you're already
there's so many horror stories on that. Like a guy that worked with us, I think he just dodged doing his taxes for a couple of years. 15 grand it was.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I don't know how many PTs out there have 15 grand
lying
sitting in their back pocket. Or can afford, that's essentially twice, that's your rent again. So paying double your rent in the gym for the next 52 weeks to pay that back.
And not only that, the next year rolls around.
And you still have to pay it again.
And again. So with the first year of being a PT or any business owner, putting the money aside for tax. Very important. Again, having a chat with your accountant about what percentage that should realistically be, between 20 and 30% probably. Just putting that money aside, and then great, happy days if you don't actually have that tax bill at the end. Cool, you got that money back, but you've at least accounted for it. You've at least planned for it. How terrible would it be to finish the year with money? Extra $5,000? Wouldn't that be amazing? Exactly. Most people aren't doing that, but they really should be thinking about doing that. But so going back to what the banks are looking for, so consistency, growing the business, treating it like a legitimate business. We take net. So when you're looking at a sole trader, so most of these guys would be sole traders, I'm guessing. It's not income that we're looking at. It's net profit that we're looking at. Because all the expenses are the expenses. We don't get to use them as income. So, you know, when you go into your accounting, you're trying to write off all of your income with expenses, and then you're leaving yourself with no profit. I've got no income.
Yeah.
to use for servicing.
So I have a great horror story on that. So I started in sales as well.
Yep.
Made okay money in my first year. Bought it because I was terrible with money.
Bought a car.
I need to buy something, otherwise I'm just going to drink all of this money. So I bought a car.
Of course.
Then 3 or 4 years later,
Mm-hmm.
I went into the bank and was going to buy the exact same model, so it was obviously depreciated.
Mhm.
Repayments were going to be less.
Mhm.
Never missed a payment.
Mhm.
Seamless record.
Mhm.
And you think like, oh yeah, I'll just go speak to the bank manager, and the bank manager will sign a piece of paper, and off we go. It's like, no. Bank manager puts stuff into computer. Computer says yes or no.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to sell this and get this. My repayments were going to drop like $60 a week. Blah blah blah. And they're like, yeah, you don't make any money.
Yeah.
And I was like, I
What
was
are you talking
making
about?
more money
Yes,
when
I
I
do.
bought it. But on paper, I don't. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I wasn't even paying any tax. I was like, oh, this is the problem. So now, like,
Yes.
we're
Now you
like,
understand.
yeah, getting married, house,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. It's like we actually have to make decisions. So
Mhm.
my partner's self-employed as well, and her
Yeah.
business is just blown up.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we could. There's a way we are around GST right now
Yeah.
that we can move from one business type to another
Mhm.
and dodge it for 12
Mhm.
months.
Mhm.
But where do we need to be in 12 months? What do we
Exactly.
have to show in 12 months?
Exactly.
Then how much does that bill actually cost you
Yeah.
in the long run of not paying that 10 grand GST?
Exactly. You're exactly right. But all of this is again coming back to what do we want for our life and working backwards, right?
Mm.
Like there is when you get to a certain level and a certain income and everything like that, you'll have creative accountants that can help you in certain ways. Try to pay minimal tax.
Yeah.
But where we're avoiding tax and we're not declaring income, it's income that we need to service debt.
Yeah.
Okay. Income services debt. Now there are also, not that I necessarily want to advertise this, but there are like lower doc options where we can, use other means of verification, but you still need to be earning money.
Yeah.
As a mortgage broker, I'm never, ever, ever going to sit there and get a loan for a client that I don't think can afford it.
Yeah.
Right? Because who wants that? It's all well and good to go get this home loan, but if you're sitting there eating cup of noodles for the rest of your life because you genuinely can't afford it, or you start missing payments, or you start defaulting,
Yeah.
nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So we need to just make sure that it's affordable, and of course we know that within businesses there can be some creative accounting going on, so
Yeah.
we need to get creative as well and what we can add back, and
Yeah.
help the banks understand how these businesses run, and that's up to us to do that. But yeah, one thing to note is that if you're writing off all of your income, that's going to be an issue
Yeah.
when it comes time to getting a loan. So yeah, getting onto someone like me early in the piece, you mentioned it before, like I don't just get loans, like I help you get the loan. So
Yeah.
like rewind all the way back to the year or two before. That's why I created the penny purchase plan.
Yeah.
Is because so many people, most people, I rarely meet someone who doesn't want to own property in their
Yeah.
life. Like it's genuinely something, whether or not they want to own their own home or have investments or both,
Yeah.
most people want to do that at some point. So I can help them put the things in place to make sure that that becomes a reality.
Yeah, I think it's underutilized to think about that. Like, and that's something we try and push in our course as well. Like, go and speak to someone about what you want
What you
to
need
do
to do.
in
Yeah.
2 years' time,
Yeah.
not tomorrow.
Correct.
That's correct.
Because if I've got 2 years up my sleeve,
Yeah,
we can do so much in that time.
Yeah.
A year up our sleeve, there's generally a lot of things that we can do. If you say, oh, can I get pre-approved, and we don't have any means of income or anything for you to prove to me that you can actually really run a legitimate business, there's not really much we can do at that point.
yeah,
And so then that's the starting point. And so then now we're a year or two maybe behind on where you would prefer to
Yeah.
have been. So
and it's like we said, it's all those things that we've talked about up till now. It's the education, it's the upbringing, it's all of that. It's like, yeah, but I make lots of money. I have a 6-figure business. Like, I get it. Like you
six-figure income.
Yeah,
A
you-
six-figure gross income.
yeah, you bill $2,000 per week off
Yeah,
clients, but
yeah.
does it show as that? It's
Correct.
not necessarily the same thing.
That's exactly right.
So for a trainer who's further along,
Yep.
So us, for example, have been in discussion about opening a gym for
Yeah.
3 years now.
Nothing like planning.
Yeah, COVID kind of made that a bit of an issue. But
Yeah.
for someone who is in a position now to like, all right, I want to expand. Where do we start? Is it the same process? Is it the same kind of discussion? How do we go about that?
Yeah, it's similar kind of discussion, and again, speaking to someone like me, because I don't just do home loans. Like I do all types of finance, and so there is actually quite a lot of funding available off the back of COVID. So there has been some blessings there. So businesses who were affected, i.e. any business pretty much in Melbourne
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, I could say they've been affected by COVID in some way.
Yeah.
The government's actually given money at the bank, well not given money, but The banks have money from the government backed to say, hey, we actually want to help the economy, right? We want to pump money back into these small businesses, whether or not they need to recover or they want to expand. And so there's money available. Really, really good business finance money. Like normally a business loan will carry an interest rate of 7%. Generally, this is unsecured. 7%, small loan term, so like quite a high repayment. So it's, it can be a bit stressy, right, to carry a loan like that. Whereas the COVID money, we're talking less than 4%. We're talking 10-year loan terms. We're talking being able to defer repayments. Like they're really trying to help these businesses. So again, come and have a chat to someone like me who we want to understand what you're trying to do. So, we'll work with you on your business plan. We'll work with you on your projections. We're going to understand what it is where you're trying to aim, and then we can figure out if we need to get money for that. If you've got the money to invest yourself, do you reserve your own cash? Do we use the banks instead so that you can keep that money? Because if you want to start looking at expanding, i.e. opening gyms or making massive adjustments, adding staff, it costs money. And cash is king. You want to make sure you always have, where possible, we want to have cash in the bank for those times where shit hits the fan or if things do go a little bit quiet. That was one of the biggest issue, or pretty much the biggest issue any small business has, is cash flow. And not managing that well. So then when things aren't rosy, there's nothing left. So we need to have that backup. And so that's why using some funding sometimes, not for everyone, but it can be a good option.
Yeah, and our chief financial officer is behind the computer just over there.
Yeah, so, very good.
We'll have that discussion.
So moving from there, like the next thing I assume that you get asked all the time, because it's the first thing I thought about, is like investments and understanding, like, do I buy, because it depends which book you pick up.
Right.
So someone's like, buy all of the houses in Australia. And then someone else is like, don't buy any, buy stock. And then obviously now we're throwing crypto into the mix, and like we're playing around in the JPEG casino at the moment, buying NFTs and all that kind of stuff as well. When do we start having that discussion? I think is a more important question than necessarily what to invest in, but when should we be starting? As
early as possible, right? Like you want to start investing as early as possible, because I can only assume, you correct me if I'm wrong, but most people starting a business are quite ambitious. Most people starting a business are quite passionate and they want more for their life. At some point they're going to want to stop trading time for money. Right? They want to try and create a business that's going to have passive income, that they don't always have to rock up 5 a.m. to do that session. Okay. At some point we want to be able to stop doing that. So your business is one of those investments. If you're treating it well, if you're doing all the right things, it is one of those investments, but it is absolutely not and shouldn't be everything, because anything and everything can happen and that could all fall over. So you do need to diversify. And so this is where coming into other investments, property, whatever it is you want to do, plays a role. Now, I can't give financial advice, so we won't be giving financial advice. We're not going to talk about any specific products or anything like that. But what I would say is when you get to a point where you do have that surplus, so you've got a business running smoothly, you're paying yourself, now we've got a bit of surplus, it's what do we do with that surplus, right? And it's how much of it, but also it just needs to align with your future goals. So most people do want property because it's tangible. It's that emotional thing as well of owning your own home, not wasting money on rent.
It's the Aussie dream,
exactly.
Right?
So there's pretty much always going to be that. So that's great. Let's tick that box. Let's get a home. But then we have to diversify further from that too, because property, just like any other investment, everything's volatile. So you want to make sure that you do have, all like different eggs in different baskets, so to speak. So that's where you need to see a financial advisor though. Okay, super important once you do have that little bit of surplus, and that's part of what we do in our recommendations. So like I'll go through the budget and the cash flow and get people to a point, it's like, okay, great, we are killing it. Now we have an extra $1,000 a month or whatever. What can we do with this? And I'll introduce them to financial advisor that we work with, and that also you have to be really careful of, because the industry is full of sharks and full of people that are charging way too much and giving you way not enough. So being careful of who you get your advice from, but seeing a financial advisor, creating a plan. And again, it all comes back to, okay, we eventually want to get to somewhere where we can stop trading time for money. What does that income look like? Like how much income do you want per year?
To actually live off.
To live off. So okay, I want to earn $100,000 a year and not have to get up if I don't want. Okay, cool. Well, what are the things we got to do? How long is that going to take? What kind of investment is that going to take? Is that possible? And you just work through. Again, it comes back to the numbers, but you do kind of have to have a little bit of an understanding about where you're going. But most people I find that are business owners are ambitious enough to be able to peg that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and say, actually, even if it's shooting for the stars. And that's what I like to get people to do as well. Just tell me what you really want.
Yeah.
Like, take all the filters out of it. Like, don't worry about what mum and dad might think or anyone else for that matter. What do you want?
Yeah.
Let's figure out if we can do that, because how cool would that be?
Yeah, I love it. I wish I had that discussion earlier in my life.
But it's not too late.
Yeah,
right?
It was like, it's the same thing. It was like, I'm shit with money, I party too much, so I bought a nice car. And I was like
every 19-year-old boy.
Yeah, it's like at the end of it, at least I'll have something I can sell, even if it's depreciating asset.
Yeah.
It was like, I think I actually went and looked at, remember they did that like $3,000 and you're in thing?
Yeah.
With home loans.
Yeah.
I went and looked at that,
Yeah.
and I was like, this seems really sketchy. And looking back at my life, if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't be where I am right now. Because the overheads would have just buried me.
Yeah.
Did not take the risk that I took to get here.
Yeah.
So good decision.
Sure.
Maybe buying the car, not so much the best financial decision on time, but it was fast and it was fun. So that's all right.
You don't seem too worried about it.
But like, yeah, so being in a position where it's like, okay, you're making X. Because I went to university for engineering, and they were like, this is the second highest paying graduate first year course you can do. And I was like, oh wow, okay.
We're rolling in it.
Yeah, I was like eating spaghetti bolognese for dinner every day, living off like $50 a week, so I still had $50 to go home to Shep and drink on the weekend. Because that was important.
Priorities.
Yeah. But then I left university, was like, this is shit. Went and worked in sales at the gyms. All of a sudden I was on $75,000 a year. Yeah. And I was like, I've never seen this much money.
Yeah.
So it was like just
Yeah.
weekends out or cars or clothes or whatever. It was that like I've missed out for however long time.
Yeah, treat yourself.
So
and I'm young, I've got time, you know.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very common. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm sitting here saying you can't do any of that, because you do need to have a good time. And that's what life is about. But there is about striking some bit of balance there, because if you had to put, you know, even just a couple $100 away and started investing that then, you know, but there's no point, and I try to get people to do this, there's no point regretting it. There's no point just like beating yourself up and being like, wish I'd have done that, wish I'd have done that. Like, obviously hindsight's wonderful. Yeah. Of course we would have done things differently had we know what we know now. Yeah. Great. But we're still young. Yeah. And I feel like most people that you're talking to, most of the people that are in, you know, your sphere, we still have so much time. Yeah. But if you spend the next 10 years doing what you've done for the last 10.
That's a problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? So now we know.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, all right, yeah, we had a good time, did all those things, no regrets, yada, yada. But what can we actually do now? Yeah. What should we be doing now? Not saying we're not going to keep having fun. We absolutely should be doing that. Life is for living. But where can we make some sort of adjustments to make sure that we can keep having fun, keep living the life we want, and not get to the point where we're in our, you know, 50s or 60s staring down the barrel of retirement wondering how the hell we're going to do that. Yeah. Like, we don't want to be there. I want to try and prevent anyone from getting to that point where you're getting down that end and you want to be able to pull it up and you can't, because you have to keep working to keep the bills paid, to keep the mortgage paid, whatever that looks like. No, let's avoid that. It's
interesting too. Like, I think the finance industry is obviously evolving, and seeing people like you, and the same with the fitness industry, like the services are getting better. Yep. People, because marketing, I think because marketing has become so accessible for small businesses and stuff with social media and all that kind of stuff, we're seeing people have to compete harder. They have to solve problems better. So it's not, I'll go to the bank and try and find financial advice from them. I can go to this really cool person on social media
that I actually connect with and gives a shit.
Yeah. And what that means is, and I think people still misconstrue this, is like when they hear the term budget, they're like, I have to like open my account at the end of the week and write down every dollar and cent that I spend and put that in and make sure it's like, no, that's not how it works. No. But people still have that perception. It's like, you can still buy your Jordans, you can still get your hair done.
If we factored it in, of course, if it fits. Yeah. And this is the thing. This is why I was saying earlier, like, I'm not here to judge and say you shouldn't be spending money on this, that, or the other. It's like, what's important to you, what gives you light, what makes you happy. That's so important. Okay. And as long as doing those things isn't having a massive negative impact on the rest of your life, go nuts. Like, power. I love that for you. Yeah. But it's where people are making really horrific decisions that are having super detrimental effects, putting them into severe debt, making them more stressed, and not giving them an out so that they can get to financial freedom at some point.
Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe we probably should have a conversation about that. Do you know what I mean? You know, there's a big difference between having the money, spending it how you like, having money left over, starting investing, versus like there's obviously the whole other FIRE thing, right? And I'm not necessarily like that doesn't fit me, where they do nothing, right? And they are like double using their tea bags and everything to make sure that they can save every last cent, so that then they can have all this extra money to retire really, really quickly. It's like, okay, that's great, and for some people that might work well, but I'm not up for that big of sacrifice.
I don't see that in business owners. Like you said, they tend to be the ambitious type. They're like, I'll just make more.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was literally having this conversation with Jess the other day. I'm like looking at my, expenses in the business, and my wage bill was getting big now with hiring more staff. I'm like, just make more money.
Yeah.
Like, find another way to make more money. And like, that's literally my mentality. It's like, how do I keep growing? Okay, how do we keep making more money? How do we keep helping more people? Because that's how I'm then going to be able to hire more people and breed that. Versus like, I've got to cut back. Yeah. And of course, there's always ways we could all cut back. I don't think anyone could argue with that. But it's, do you want to?
Exactly. And it's like, again, back to the fitness analogy. It's like giving someone the 1200 calorie diet. If you're going to not follow it and eat 1500 anyway, set the plan to 1500.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
At least put a W in the column at the end of the week.
Yeah.
And build some confidence and build some over time. Yeah. So you can actually be adherent.
Don't set people up to fail.
Yeah.
Because that never works. Yeah. Like, people need to feel the small wins, it's money, fitness, literally, like there's so many parallels. Like with diet's like a huge thing. I get that in our studio all the time. Like we had this one client, she came to us specifically wanted to lose weight. Like there's a lot of people that wanted to do that. And she'd been seeing a dietitian. Yeah. But the dietitian's advice purely, cop this. I don't know, this might be normal. I've never heard of this before. The dietitian's advice purely was to just write down her feelings. Mm-hmm. Every time she just ate something, all the dietitian wanted her to do was just to simply write down how it made her feel. She was paying this girl something like $170 per session to tell her that, right? Yeah. Do you think she lost any weight?
Yeah. No.
Zero way.
I like the concept, but maybe in parallel to not as.
But for that to be it, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's really cool to have that chat and understand how it's all making you feel. Right, I get that. But then what are the tangibles? Because this is the girl who doesn't know what to do. Yeah. Because if she knew what to do, she would have already done that. Yeah. She didn't necessarily want to have herself in this position. So she needs the tools, tangible tools, to be like, okay, well, this is what you need to do instead. These are the things that you're doing. This is what you need to do instead. Yeah. But that didn't happen. I'm like, how it... Anyway, don't get it. She's now losing weight, so that's good.
We've got an outcome.
We do have an outcome.
So to finish off, I think what would be cool is like, and I can kick it off because I have one that I always ask myself, just like the most frequently asked questions that you get as a broker when dealing with people's money. So my one would be like, have debt and a deposit, or have no debt, less deposit.
Okay. Answer to that is it depends.
But
it depends on so many factors. Yeah. So if your debt's all really bad debt, as in like Part 9 debt agreements, missed payments, huge credit cards, personal loans from all really bad behavior around money, don't worry about the deposit yet, because we got to figure all that shit out. Okay, we've got to get on top of all of those debts. We've got to clean up the credit file because we won't be getting a loan anyway. So let's start there. If income is really good and, everything's running really smoothly, we've got a car loan, maybe a small credit card that you pay off every single month and you're saving as well, good chance that's not going to be an issue. Yeah. So at the end of the day, getting a home loan, 3 main hurdles. First one is the deposit. Okay, you've got the bank won't just give you 100% of the money, not unless you've got bank of mum and dad or a gift coming, inheritance, something like that. Chances are you got to save some money. So a deposit is one. Number 2, we actually have to be able to service the debt. Okay, so if we want to have $1 million home loan or $500,000 home loan, you have to have income to service that. Now, all these debts that we talk about take away from that income. Yeah. So you got a repayment for your car, you got a repayment for your credit card, you got a HEX repayment. That's all just detracting from your income, leaving us less for servicing. So if there's still enough, no worries, it's fine. But there's a good chance that is taking it away so much so that we then can't afford the loan. Yeah. But again, talking to someone like me, I might say to you, okay, well, we've got a $5,000 credit card that we need to reduce to $1,000. Yep. And then it works. Cool. Great. We can often, there might be workarounds or things we can do to make it work. So I would say it depends. Yeah. Talk to me. I'll let you know what to do and then you can, take it from there. biggest question I probably get asked, look, it depends on who's asking, but a big one is like how to save. Just how do I save? Like, you know, people are often just spend what they earn.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like it doesn't matter what they earn, they're still spending it.
Yeah.
You know, and that all comes back to knowing the numbers and your cash flow.
Yeah.
So starting with what's coming in, what's going out, and being really honest with yourself about what's going out. Because so many people are like, oh, I only spend this on that. And then you really look at it and you're like, it's so much more than that, but you're just not conscious about it.
Yeah.
Being conscious about money and where it's going to know that we've got some left, that's the bit we're going to be able to save. And then once we know what we can save, so hypothetically, maybe you could save $500 a week, siphon that money away. So as soon as your money comes in, siphon that money away, because any money that's left dormant in your account, what's going to happen? Get spent. Any money that's left lying around is going to get spent. So you've got to transfer that out. It's got to have its own little hidey hole. For some people, they even need to have a separate bank account, like for a totally different bank.
Yeah.
So it's like out of sight, out of mind, can't see it. That tends to sort of work for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this, you know, there's so many different ways that we can do it, but honestly, you got to know where you're at first. Because if you're trying to save $1,000 a week, but you physically can't save $1,000 a week, you're just setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah.
So maybe it's only $500 a week, but that's still really good.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think personally, and what we talk about in Standout is like we use percentages a lot.
Yep.
It's like people even have high weeks and low weeks.
Yep.
So it's like at the end, it's like 20% goes here, 40% goes there, whatever. So it's like you made $2,000 this week, sweet. You made $1,000 this week, sweet.
Yeah.
Like it's,
and if there's people where it's a little bit up and down, work out the baseline.
Yeah.
That's what I tend to like to do is like if it is a little bit volatile, work out bare minimum. Like what will it be every single week without fail, and then work from that figure. So then anything above that, you can save.
Yeah.
Because you know you can. Because you lived off that smaller amount.
Yeah.
This goes back to the feast and famine within businesses. When people's businesses are going really well, as soon as the business comes down, we don't have any money left because we've spent all of our money. Yeah. Work off the lower.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all the upper, that then goes into the savings for a rainy day, which will inevitably come.
I think tying this into personal trainers' behavior is really important because most PTs, like we said, trade time for money. They're there at 5:30, they do their sessions, they go home, maybe they do their Instagram, and then that's job done.
Yep.
Very rarely do they actually even, like, the percentage of PTs that put their hand up about, like, what do I do today? It's the same of, like, how much money hit your bank account this week? Like,
are they using Curiosity? Are they using a management system, like a PT?
Usually not.
Really?
Some of them do.
So they just use their Google Calendar to like organize their sessions. Okay. Rewind to ask me about what step one is. That is step one. Manage your schedule, right? Have a payment system so you can. There's plenty of them out there.
Most of the time, it'll be direct debit company debits into bank account. Bank account looks flush, spend money, off we go.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Rewind. Let's put it, and they're not that expensive either. Like we looked at quite a few when it came to the studio because April was the same. Like about she's like, oh, how do we do this? I'm like, oh, it's okay. We'll just put a CRM. And she's like, CRM? What are you talking about? I'm like, well, how are we going to manage the clients? She's like, oh, I don't have that many clients. I'm like, you will.
Yeah.
We're going to open a gym. We're going to have clients because we have rent to pay and all these things. We have to build this up. So let's again treat it like a legitimate business. So having some sort of PT scheduling thing, and now she uses it for programming too, which is also I didn't know that it did that, but she figured that out.
Shameless plug, there's an STC Fit app coming that you'll cool.
Oh, see, this is really that's good.
So I think and we have what we call our ultimate tracker, which is I think it's 4 spreadsheets. Yeah. It's like first one is like look at your goals and your action items. That's number one. Second one is like current state of the business.
Yep.
All your income streams, how many clients you've got in them, what your average income per client is, all of that shit. So every single week you look at it. Because it's like, oh, I lost a couple of clients. People say that all the time. It's like, I lost a couple of clients over the last. I'm like, what does that mean? How many? How much does it cost you? How many more did you put back on? And if most people don't ever actually take the time to look at it. So getting in, knowing exactly what's going on with your business. We actually have a duplicate of that, which is called a projector. So it's like, what do you want your business to look like?
Yes.
And then, because people will come in and be like, oh, yeah, I want to make $4,000 a week. Like, okay, build that. And they build it and they're
Show
like,
me how.
I don't want to fucking train 60 people. It sounds horrible.
Exactly.
So it's like,
Is that
okay,
even possible?
Yeah, so it's
after
like,
that? And yeah.
what do you have to develop? You need
Mhm.
online, you
Yeah.
need maybe small group, you
Yeah.
need start building that stuff
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
So get in, look at that.
Yeah.
Then we have like data tracking of performance, which is
Mm-hmm.
not that relevant to this conversation,
Mhm.
and then the budgeting stuff.
Mhm.
All of what we've talked about today is the same. You have to work on, not just in.
Yes.
Like just because you don't have a boss.
You need to spend more time on than you think you need to.
100%.
spend. Yeah.
Yeah, and literally
Especially at the start.
those documents take, once you've done them a couple of times,
Mhm.
15 minutes on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
that's
Respect
it.
yourself and
Yeah.
your business enough to do that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that'll change your behaviors,
Yeah.
it'll change the choices you make, it'll change the way you think,
Yeah.
it'll change turning around in 3 months and going, I'm in exactly the same position.
Mm-hmm.
Or not even doing that because you're probably not self-aware enough to do it
Mhm.
because you haven't seen it. You just be
Mhm.
like, I feel stuck, I feel anxious, I feel whatever, like this
Yeah.
isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not aware of what's happening where you need to be.
100%. Got to take responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100 million trillion %. And
Yeah.
until you're ready to do that, like, yeah, that has to be the start of it. And then show us, you know, when I have someone come to me and, you know, we want to talk about the business, I want to see what they're doing at the moment.
Mm.
You know, because I need to be able to plug the holes. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, these are all the things we should be doing. And these are things that we're not doing. Okay, well, we realistically need to do that because if you're not tracking it, you have no idea. You're going to be forever stressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So stressed.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it won't be worth it for you, which is why you're going to throw the towel in.
Yeah. And the real job thing,
Mm.
like leaving because it's stressful, which is the common thing. It's like, it's too hard to do that. I'll just go get a real job. Like, doesn't need to be stressful to run
No.
a small business.
It doesn't need to be. But also, the new job's going to have its own stress.
Yeah.
Everything has stress.
Yeah, because you've just learned what it's like to not have a boss, and then you're going to get one.
Exactly. And you're going to have to put a dodgy suit on and probably sit at a desk somewhere. And,
Yeah.
you know, they're going to make fun of your meal prep. And like, all the things.
So coming back to obviously the 1% course,
Mhm.
I think your presentation's in, what are we, March, April, May, I believe your workshop is. Is that right?
Okay.
I think.
I think it's June, but it could be
Oh, it
May.
might be June.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That's all right.
There's a lot of dates in my head.
Whenever
right
it is, just let me know.
now. I'm trying to plan our honeymoon, so there's just like numbers of matrix in my brain.
Where are
of
you
dates.
going?
Through Europe. So
Ah.
we're going to do Switzerland, Spain, Paris, London.
I'm very jealous.
Yeah, it should be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. So yeah,
Mm.
I can't remember where I was now.
But I was asking, you were
Ah,
talking about the
so
workshops.
course.
Yeah.
So the course content's coming out at the moment.
Mhm.
More and more added all the time.
Yeah.
So what would you say are the main like outcomes
Mhm.
you're hoping to achieve with people when they go through the modules and then
Mhm.
into the workshop?
Everything we've spoken about today, actually.
Yeah.
So the first module goes through that money mindset stuff.
Mhm.
It takes you back. It gets you to really think about why you behave the way you do with money. It's quite a long module, and there's also a workbook to help you sort of work through it all. Then we go into the budget and cash flow stuff, of
Yeah.
course, because knowing your numbers is what's coming up next. I touch on, you know, advisors and adding them into the business at what time, touch on buying a home and going through some different scenarios with that as well.
Yeah.
And then within the workshop, obviously I'm hoping that everyone's gone through and done all of the exercises.
Yeah.
Because we're going to do a recap. We're going to do, you know, frequently asked questions. I'm sure plenty of people are going to come with like, oh, cool, I've got myself to here. Like, what can I do now?
Yeah.
And be able to work through that in the workshop. And, you know, help people go back if they haven't necessarily know what to do or just need a little bit of help. Obviously, we can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing like a spreadsheet of money
Yeah.
to make a personal trainer's brain freeze.
Yeah. No,
Like-
I know, and I have, you know, with both the spreadsheets. There's only two.
Yeah,
The whole
look
course.
out,
There's
look
only
out.
two spreadsheets. One for personal, one for business.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is I'm trying to make it simple. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the personal one, just money in, money out. And I've done a Loom video as well in it to
Yeah.
actually like, this is what to do, this is what to do, this is
Yeah.
what to do. So that should help hopefully. So
Yeah.
just watch the videos and
Yeah, it's not even that, like, it probably sounded like I meant they glaze over. It's just like, I've seen the most intelligent people turn into just like brain cogs stop moving just from fear or
Mhm,
overwhelm or
mhm.
whatever. So
yeah, no, I know.
I think having it laid out like this is
Yeah.
super valuable for
Mhm.
anyone, but
Mm.
particularly if you're in a position where you're like, Duna's over the eyes, like, I don't want to look at this stuff.
Yeah, I don't
right
want to know.
now.
I don't want to know. But look, what I'll just say is if that's you, if that's how you're feeling right now, just super stressed, head in the sand, like treading water when it comes to money, do this.
Yeah.
Because it will make you feel a whole lot better.
Yep.
You know, we talked about it earlier, like get yourself out of your comfort zone. Like
Mhm.
this comfort that you're sitting in right now is unfucking comfortable.
Yeah, it's actually stressful.
It's super stressful. So go do these things, take yourself through the exercise, take it slow. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you guys give plenty of time to work through the content. With mine, I'd say that it's top heavy. So like
Yeah.
the first module and the second module are going to take the most time. So spend the time. Go
Yeah.
through it because it's going to make the rest of it easier anyway.
Yeah, and I know like myself as well, and like the listeners will probably deem myself to be successful. You wouldn't be listening, I assume. Like I'm in the position where it's like, okay, me and Amy need to sit down and
Yeah.
go through this. Like we need to put ourselves in the position because like this is the time now.
Yeah.
It's like for us, it's like
Yeah.
we're both her business is blown up.
Yeah.
Ours is like a really
Yeah.
good platform to
Yeah.
launch a lot of stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, like you said, where do you actually want to be? Like I wrote during the week, I was like, I just want to be debt free at 40.
How
I
cool
was
would
like,
that be?
fuck, I never thought about that before. So it's like now it's like, okay, how do I reverse engineer and make
Yeah.
that happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really valuable for both if you're terrified right now
Mhm.
and also if you're like, nah, I want to kick some ass and whatever it is, not have to stress about retirement or
Yeah.
be able, like you said, be able to sleep through the day and still make $100 grand a year, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's exciting.
Very good.
Cool. All right, thank you very much for coming on,
You're so
driving all
welcome.
the way out to the western suburbs.
That's okay. It
Hopefully-
didn't even take me that long.
Hopefully your car's still out front.
Don't say that.
Nah, the Point Cook isn't that bad. You just don't go on the other side of the freeway. We
Okay.
can say that because Jace isn't here.
Okay.
So tell everyone where to find yourself, websites, Instagrams.
Mhm.
Where do you live?
I live mostly on Instagram. That is definitely my platform of choice. So @_penny finance. I try to do reels on there to educate people and just make it a little bit more fun. You know,
Yep.
like money doesn't need to be boring and stressful, and that's kind of what I'm trying to put out there. And then my website, www.pennyfinance.com.au, pretty normal. I do have Facebook, but I don't really reside on there. If anything's
Is
on
anyone
Facebook,
now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Anything on Facebook's just come from Instagram.
Same.
so
Yeah.
so that's where I'm definitely hanging out.
Yeah, awesome. So, and maybe just before we wrap up, if anyone's like STC Fit sucks, but I want to still work with Morgan, just the services, because I think
Yeah.
people think broker and they don't actually realize the type of services you offer, and I think it's valuable.
Super broad. So if you're at the point where you're struggling with money, you know, you're in those debts, you just you just can't fucking figure it out. We offer, you know, that service where you can come, we can sort through it all, we can figure out what to do next. So that's my Penny Power session stuff. So it's just about giving you confidence and empowering you around your money, starting from, you know, day dot. And my penny purchase plan, that's, you know, most people want to own a home, as we talked about. So it's planning that out. It's like, okay, is it going to take 6 months, a year, 2 years? What's it going to take? What are the things we've got to put in place to make that happen? Obviously, if you've already got a deposit or you think you're ready to go, you want to start investing, you want to have a chat about a home loan, you can do that. I also do business consulting as well. So, you know, small businesses wanting to either invest in their business or just need help essentially to expand. I also do that too. So there's a few things going on.
Awesome.
But
I like
yeah,
it.
no, thanks for having me.
No problems. All right, we'll wrap it up there.